All right, hey everybody. It is I don't know Thursday afternoon. I think that sounds right. Just another day in the world of college football realignment. I've read it's 2021. I think it's actually 2011. We're back to those days. Gabe DeArmond here. I am in Columbia, Missouri. Mitchell Forde on the other side of your screen is in a ballroom in Hoover, Alabama, where SEC Media Days has been going on for the last 4 days. Missouri took the stage this morning. Mitch, I know you got there yesterday and basically followed Eli Drinkwitz around, who it appears is, as we kind of anticipated he would be, the star of SEC Media Days.
Yeah, I followed him around as best I could. Unfortunately, actually, with the COVID deal this year, couldn't quite actually go every single place he went, but still got to hear most of the sound bites at a minimum. And yeah, I mean, like, it's pretty much what we expected. I think you and I both said that he was pretty much made for SEC Media Days. You know, he's not a coach who worries about, bulletin board material or making headlines. He thrives on that. He likes to be the star of the show, and he was today. You know, he was cracking jokes. He was taking jabs at other coaches, taking jabs at the league office, talking about Texas and Oklahoma. So I think it's safe to say that he was the darling of the day.
Yeah, and somebody had told me yesterday, he has been waiting for this day since he walked off a high school field. And he had to wait an extra year because, he didn't get to do this last year, right? So he has been, he has a way of, I guarantee you, he thought of some of these things he was going to say, 6 weeks ago. But he has a way of making them not sound not sound canned. And guys, I'm getting, some of you are saying there's a little bit off maybe with my mic. That may have to do with echo from my computer, echo from Mitch's computer. I'm not sure. If we can figure it out as we go along, we will. Hopefully it's not too bad. We're trying a couple things. I might have to move the camera and figure something out. But no, I mean, Drinkwitz did what he's done in pretty much every press conference since we've covered it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, people talking about him waiting years to do this. Like, he actually told a story that when he was here as a high school coach, his first year as a high school assistant in 2006, his Springdale team played in the 7-on-7 tournament at Hoover, and they went and got lunch at the mall food court, and SEC Media Days was going on. He was like, "Oh, that would be fun."
I've been to that food court.
Yeah. Today. So I ate lunch at that food court today. Got a cheesesteak. Mainly, actually, just went down there to thaw because this media room is about 15 degrees. It's kind of insane, but yeah. So I mean, I'll have more on that tomorrow. I'm writing my story for tomorrow morning just on Drinkwitz, but it was fun to to just get to hear all that he had to say.
Disappointed. I thought you were going to say you're writing your story for tomorrow in the food court.
Yeah, my Charlie's cheesesteak.
I know I've been to the Chick-fil-A there. It's been a few years since I've been to Hoover, but I assume that's still there.
The Chick-fil-A had a long line. I was like 120 and I hadn't eaten. I was like, cheesesteak, that looks good enough.
Yeah, I did manage to figure out the button I needed to hit to make the echo go away. So that's good news. I want to give a shout out real quick to Paul Burkhardt, who made shiny new graphics for our show this year. Mitch, I know you can't see him, but you'll see him eventually. So kudos to Paul. And the first thing up there on the left hand of the screen, September 4th, season opener. We are what, Mitch? 6 weeks and a couple days? Is that about right,
yeah.
I think
that sounds right. Yeah, I think Saturday will be 6 weeks out.
Mm-hmm. So I know you weren't there for everything, and we'll get to what the big story of SEC Media Days, which it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with SEC Media Days. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what kind of, at least from today, was the feel? I know Brian Harsin went. I honestly don't even remember the third coach that went today. But yeah. What's kind of the talk and the chatter down there, other than the Red River rivalry, which we'll talk about soon?
Right. The other coach today was Sam Pittman.
Right.
It was honestly, it was kind of what you would expect. A lot of the questions in the main room are just, reporters from other teams asking questions about like a specific question of a coach about, an interaction they've had with a player or a staff member or whoever on that team. The overarching themes were, name, image, and likeness, and COVID vaccinations. And Eli Drinkwitz spoke quite a bit on both of those. I have quotes from that in the notebook that I put on the site earlier, so check those out. He was pretty strong on the COVID vaccination subject. I know he said, I know this is a bit of a tender issue of political issues, but he said he pretty much came out and said, I want our guys to get vaccinated, both because it's a competitive advantage and because I believe that's what's best. Right. And that's kind of shows more also of how he's unique in his ability to go from joking around to pretty serious about a topic that could be a little touchy to then joking around again. And name, image, and likeness, he was likewise pretty good. I mean, obviously, we knew kind of where he stood there since he was, part of getting the law passed in Missouri. But he just talked about, look, Alabama's quarterback's already making $1 million off of this. That's going to help them in recruiting. We need to find a way to help us in recruiting. So I think that was a little bit of a challenge to Mizzou fans. And by the way, one other fun note on NIL, Case Cook, he was asked, about the idea that offensive linemen might be mad if his quarterback's making a bunch more money, and Case Cook basically said, "Hell no! Wait till you see the deals I got lined up. I'm cashing in, baby."
There you go. Real quick, you mentioned Bryce Young. Do we really believe Bryce Young has $1 million in name, image, and likeness deals? Because I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to say no for sure because it's Alabama, right? That's things are different down there. Everything's bigger, and he's the starting quarterback. But no, I kind of don't either. I think it was kind of brilliant of Saban to throw that out there because, right, like you said, it's a recruiting thing. Hey, come be our quarterback. It doesn't matter if you played it down. You can make $1 million.
Right. If the guy that's going to start for us is making $1 million, like you can come here and be the third stringer and make $250,000. I'd be shocked if it was true, but that's not the point. It's being used for recruiting, which obviously the NCAA said was not going to happen, and that can't be a part of it. So way to go, NCAA. Good foresight on that one. The COVID stuff, though, like I can't remember when we talked to Jim Sturk. I want to say it was about 2 weeks ago. 2.5 weeks ago, and he said at that point, like 50% of Missouri athletes are vaccinated, and like we really got to do better. And I don't know if you saw, I think Akil Byers, who was there, was actually one of the ones I saw in the couple days after that press conference. Like I saw a good number of Missouri football players tweeting that they had gotten the shot. And look, whatever you think about it or don't think about it, like Drinkwitz said, like Nick Saban has said, look, if you don't get it, you're increasing the chances that your team is going to forfeit a football game this year. And nobody wants that. So whether you think you should get it, you shouldn't get it, whatever, like it's kind of a big deal, and the coaches are going to want these kids to do it. Now, I don't think they're going to do things like you can't play if you didn't get it, but they're not going to be real happy if all of a sudden their team has to go through contact tracing because they had 24 kids who didn't want to do this.
Yeah, no, I think definitely what happened was, kids were off campus there for a week or so around 4th of July. And when they got back, I think there was a big push from the Mizzou administration to, get people vaccinated or at least get their first shot. And that's something Drinkwitz said is, they've got a number of people who are, between their first and second shot right now. So he wasn't sure what the exact percentage of the roster would be today, but he knows it's under 85 right now, but said he's very confident they can get to 85% by the start of fall camp. And his approach, he basically said was, it's an individual choice and everyone can make their decision. But like, if you don't get vaccinated, we've got to treat you differently. You've got to wear a mask, you've got to social distance, you've got to have the same basically rules that we operated with last year because we can't have an outbreak like NC State had at an inopportune time. So that was kind of his approach.
And if I remember, and not to get too deep in the weeds on this, but I mean, you and I both got ours pretty close together back, I think, in late March or early April. I mean, so if he's saying we ought to be 85% by fall camp, that means he's at least confident 85% of the kids will have gotten at least one shot. And then look, the second one might come 2 weeks later, but ideally, probably you get one shot, and 5 days later, you should be okay and not really at risk of a whole lot of things.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, he wouldn't go too deep into specifics with the numbers, but he seemed confident about the 85%.
So I know Akil Byers and Case Cook were there, and guys that obviously Mizzou fans know, maybe not the biggest media personalities or all that. Anything come out of, other than the fact Case Cook wore cowboy boots? Did anything worthwhile come out of talking to those guys today?
Yeah, nothing too much. Akil Byers was okay. He's just not. I don't think it's really in his personality to be all too vocal. He's not someone who's going to give you a long-winded answer or anything like that.
His suit made a lot of headlines today.
Yes, it looked good. I thought he was sharply dressed. Case Cook was very funny, much more personable than I've seen him in the past. But yeah, most of his funny answers were more about his clothing or his departed mullet than really anything like football related. He did say that this is the first suit he's ever owned, but he still wore his boots. He wore his nicest pair of boots. There was much ado about the boots. We talked about his mullet. he said he'll have some surprises for us soon with his facial hair.
Well,
so those were probably the headlines with Case Cook.
Yeah, I saw his boots and Drinkwitz's shoes, and I'm like, the things people choose to pay attention to here are kind of weird. But hey, whatever. It's not like they're going to tell us what formation they're lining up in and who's starting on day one.
Yeah, I will say Cook did have a couple quotes on, just guys from the offense. He was very, spoke highly of Connor Base, like as did Eli Drinkwitz, talking about, he's absolutely our starter. And you can kind of see that after a full off season as our starter, he's got a different way about him, a little bit of a confidence. Case Cook did slip in there a couple different times. He said, watch out for Towski Dove. That's all he would say. He said, watch out for Towski Dove. So
okay, we will
pass along his message.
We will be watching anything like newsy at all. I mean, I know a lot of times they'll have a fall camp schedule, or maybe there'll be, hey, this guy is hurt and isn't going to be there, or something like that. Anything like that come out today?
Not really. Drinkwitz was talking a little bit about the defense, and he said that they're going to run a 4-2-5 base formation with 3 cornerbacks, which is no huge surprise. That's about what we thought. It's very similar to last season. You may not have, instead of a third safety, although what Josh Bledsoe played was more cornerback than anything, and you may not have that buck stand up outside linebacker. That was a little newsy. The other thing that I thought was interesting was he was talking about the 2022 recruiting class where they have 12 guys committed right now, and he said basically because of the COVID numbers where guys, or the COVID year where guys can come back, they're only going to get probably 15, 16 commitments before the start of the season, and then probably wait until after the season, see where they're at, see how many spots they have left, who wants to come back, and where they need to get immediate help in the transfer portal versus where they can take another high school kid.
So there you heard it. Mitchell said that Eli Drinkwitz wants to get Luther Burden and 3 other guys before the start of the season. So that's breaking news on the 573 report today. I do need to mention, and didn't mention it at the top, look, we're a little out of practice with this whole thing. We threw this together kind of last minute, but this is the 573 report, special summer edition, 573tees.com. Go there. They're doing a lot of stuff. They did some stuff with Drake Heismeyer. I know Daniel Hawthorne, the long snapper, did a T-shirt with him. They're doing some name, image, and likeness stuff, but they also have a lot of just Mizzou stuff, a lot of things that you guys might want to check out. So make sure to do that, and we're in talks with those guys. Certainly expect to have that partnership continue during this season. We're going to do a lot of stuff with video shows and podcasts and all that throughout this football season. So we will get to that. So I remember, Mitch, I don't know, I want to say it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Pete Scantlebury was at media days for us, and I was actually back in Columbia, and we happened to break the story that Mack Rhodes was going to Baylor about 10 minutes before Barry Odom took the stage, and I thought, hey, that's a pretty big deal. Like, that's a big story. SEC Media Days will be talking about that. So that's clearly not the biggest story that's broken at SEC Media Days in the last few years. I know you actually found out from a text from me when your plane landed in Nashville that this story was out about OU in Texas. So you weren't yet at Hoover, but just being there last night and then kind of through the morning, what's been the talk and the reaction down there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's what everyone's now been talking about, is the possibility of Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. And you touched on this on the site, but for people who haven't seen it, I think at this point, everyone's thought is, I mean, this is legitimate. This is not just complete BS. There's something to this. No one has come out and denied it. And you have a lot of different outlets coming out and sourcing, this has been talked about. There's people meeting about it, stuff like that. So clearly there's some smoke. Obviously nothing is, it doesn't seem like anything is decided. I think there's also one thing that's a bit of a consensus here is who leaked this information, and it probably was the team whose AD actually happened to just show up and have something to say on the matter yesterday.
And it's the one who absolutely doesn't want it to happen. Yeah. Exactly. So just talking to people about it, it's been fascinating. Obviously that's every coach, regardless of, people asking Eli Drinkwitz about it, and it provided him a chance to give some good sound bites, but he has no business being asked about that. But same thing with every coach who got up there today. Brian Harsin, he's like, I haven't coached a game in this league yet. Right.
I have no history with Oklahoma or Texas, but whatever,
he did actually coach at Texas at one point in time. I believe he was there.
Yeah, that's actually true.
But no, it is what obviously everybody's talking about. And what you said is a big deal. Like, I remember when Missouri was going through this, people couldn't wait to tell you, no, we haven't talked to the SEC. This is stupid, blah, 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 which obviously was not true at the time. But they're not even messing with that this time around. They're like, yeah, maybe some things are happening. And look, my big thing is this. I don't think this is coincidence that this is happening. And just 3 days ago, there was a story by Ross Dellinger where Greg Sankey was basically saying, we got to look at this whole NCAA thing, and, maybe the time is coming for the Power 5 schools and conferences to kind of look at some other model. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that those two things are going on at the same time.
I completely agree. And because, you think about what's going to happen if, this happens, even if Texas and Oklahoma weren't to come to the SEC, if Texas leaves the Big 12 is no longer going to exist. Those schools are going to go find new homes, and you'll probably have 4 16-team leagues. And once you have 4 16-team leagues, it becomes a lot easier to kind of hold your own football deal. And so, yeah, I definitely think that, like you said, the timing is not a coincidence with the fact that was brought up as one of the possibilities. And Ross Dellinger and others who wrote stories about, the SEC and other conferences are a little bit fed up with the NCAA. They want to maybe change things up with football. So there you go.
I think that's the Big 12 as we know it doesn't exist if Texas and OU leave, right? But does the Big 12, because I've heard some people say the Big 12's best bet, and not just like message board posts or Twitter. I've talked to some people who cover the Big 12 and who are familiar with the Big 12 and say, I think the best bet is to try to go get BYU and UCF and Houston and whatever. And I'm going, but okay, your TV deal was like, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $35 million a team. And the Big 12 went in May and said, hey, we want to renegotiate this early. And TV Network said, no, we're good. We don't need to do that. And so now if you go to the TV networks, this thing currently goes through 2025, and it probably wouldn't last that long. But if you go and say, hey, yeah, we lost Texas and OU, but hey, check out UCF and BYU. Like, what does that draw? Like 50%? Right. Are they going, cool, 17 million? I mean, do those schools want to do that?
Right. You're then the American. You're the American Athletic
You're
Conference,
not a Power 5 league that deserves an automatic playoff bid.
Right. So exactly. I think what would happen is, yes, maybe the league says, those two teams leave. The league says, oh, let's try to, keep this together. Well, if you're Oklahoma State, you're immediately looking for where else can I go? If you're any of the schools left, Kansas probably looking, saying, Big Ten, please take us in. Yep. The Texas schools, Baylor and Texas Tech and TCU, Pac-12, please take us in. And so then I think that's how it would end up splintering. And
so the schools that I think have to be scared are Kansas State and Iowa State. Like, there's no natural. Yep. The Big Ten's not taking Iowa State. I don't see the Pac-12 taking Kansas State or Iowa State, because if these leagues do it, West Virginia will find a home in the ACC. I think if chaos goes, Notre Dame, if they have to land in a conference, has the Big Ten or the ACC. UCF makes some sense in the ACC, right? Like, UCF is more attractive than Iowa State. BYU, Boise, Vegas, these teams could find homes in the Pac-12, but I mean, these schools are now back in the exact same place that all these schools were in 2011 when, Missouri took a lot of hell for doing what it did, but there has not been a single day where Missouri looks better for doing what it did than it does today.
Absolutely. And Drinkwood's touched a little bit on that, saying, it's a good thing they made the move, because that is why I'm here. And that's why we can now just be confident that, we got a spot at the table. And I was actually texting with a buddy yesterday. I mean, everyone's, assumption is like, oh, if the Big 12 splits up, all those teams will go to other leagues. But I mean, the list of teams that in my mind are more appealing than a Kansas State and Iowa State. I mean, I'd take Cincinnati, probably Central Florida,
Memphis,
Houston, BYU, Memphis, Boise. I mean, all those teams probably over Kansas State. So yeah, I think those two that you mentioned, Kansas State and Iowa State, are the two that would have to be most nervous.
So Adam Schlittler makes a good point. He says, shout out to Mitch with the pod system he came up with yesterday. It makes a ton of sense, and SEC Network doesn't put that out. We're being clear. The SEC Network stole your pod system, right? That's what happened?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Did Feinbaum ask you for?
Feinbaum?
Yeah, did he ask you for permission?
He's behind me somewhere. Yeah, no one has asked me, and I'm furious. I'm suing.
But look, that's all the fun part of this. That we could do 12 shows on what the different layouts would be and what it would look like. And the truth is, obviously, none of us really know. But my reaction when I saw that tweeted this morning, look, this is the SEC network. This isn't like whatever they call Stephen A. Smith show on ESPN putting this out, right? This is the SEC network owned and operated by the SEC. I'm not sure that's just thrown out there without any information as being possible.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I mean, first of all, my first reaction was, yes, that I've been plagiarized. And I actually asked Eli Drinkwitz to I saw it right before he went on that morning show, and I asked him to tell them on air that I was upset and was going to sue. And I don't think he did, which is pretty disappointing considering he said most anything else he wanted to today. So I feel like I was given short shrift there. But yeah, I agree. There's something to that. You know, when the SEC's actual conference, television network is putting that out there. But yeah, that was the benefit of being stuck on a runway in the wrong airport for like 3 hours yesterday. I was just bemusing the possibilities of what a 16-team SEC could look like.
So it kind of another thing about this, Cameron is asking, and I'm curious if there's been any talk about this down there. People are saying, how soon could, if this happens, and like we both think, again, it's pretty far down the road. Like nobody's guaranteeing OU and Texas are in the SEC, but it seems pretty far down to walk it back at this point. So is anybody talking or even speculating down there? Like, is 2022 possible? Because the Big 12 TV thing goes through 2025, but I can't see this happening and everybody being like, cool, see you in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anyone, that at least that I feel like, or I'm like, well, you're really in a position to know, say like, oh, no one that I've heard throughout a year have I been like, oh yeah, that's going to be it. Like, I've heard different people say different things basically. But no one really seems to know on that part. I will say the one thing that, has been thrown out there that I'm like, that is the one thing that I could see that derailing all of this is that Texas decides to become, an independent. Like let's be honest, like at this point, the odds seem very good they're leaving the Big 12. Like it seems like it would be hard to get them to come back. It could happen, but
it seemed that way for a while in 2010 as well, though.
Yeah, that's true. So, I was talking with a group of guys last night, and this is very hypothetical, of course, but this is what you do when this type of things happen. You like to play out all the fun scenarios. Like, say Texas leaves to become an independent, then Oklahoma wants to come to the SEC and bring Oklahoma State. Does the SEC still do that? Or do you then say, maybe instead we could get Clemson and Florida State? Right. But then you piss off Florida and South Carolina. So it's, we're talking all the fun hypotheticals. But yeah, I have not heard anything about like, oh, this is going to go into effect 2022 or anything like that. The one sure thing seems like it won't be this year.
Right. Even though he said it, I don't think that Central Michigan and SEMO are going to be replaced on Missouri's schedule with Texas and Oklahoma. I don't think we.
I would love it if they were, by the way.
It'd be phenomenal. I mean, that would be a really fun season to cover, no question.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We just wanted to hop on and kind of update you guys and kind of get some thoughts and get the feel from down in Hoover, kind of what was going on there. I don't know. I guess kind of probably the first like actual, hey, this seems like a normal football season we've done in a couple of years, huh?
I know, it's been nice. Yeah, I feel like today was like the sign of like, okay, I think this season's really going to happen as it's supposed to. And obviously not saying that I doubted it before, but it's like, this is kind of the first step. And then we're talking about camp, some of the team people and saying like, okay, here's what, that might look like and stuff. So it's like, wow, I think it's really going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, if you can eat at the Hoover Mall Galleria food court and you can have a free Dr. Pepper, you're in good shape.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Mitch, appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time. Go back and tell Feinbaum you want credit, and we'll catch up later, man. Have a good trip home.
Sounds good.
All right, 573 report. Once again, check out 573tees.com. Get everything you want to get set for the football season, which starts in a little over 6 weeks. So that's Mitchell Forde from Hoover, Alabama. I'm Gabe DeArmond. Thanks for checking us out, and we'll put a replay of this up for those who joined late. We will be doing much more regular video stuff, streaming stuff, audio stuff all throughout the season. But wanted to make sure, figured there was enough news here in the last 24 hours that we'd jump on and just kind of hit you guys with all our knowledge in case you missed the SEC network where Power Mizzou's knowledge is actually broadcast every single day now. So thanks, guys. Have a good one.